Hey, guys, gals, and non binary pals. What up? Once again, at Big Boned FFB coming at you from the Fantasy Burn Studios in beautiful, sunny NorCal. Welcome to the Fantasy Burn. I have a really good show for you today. My guest is my partner in crime, Mike Lindberg, aka Mike Grindberg, aka at FF Canuck 99 on Twitter. He also writes with me for the news desk at playerprofiler.com. We had a really, really good conversation. Um, we talked about Canada. We talked about uh, starting work at 14 years old. We talked about working in the restaurant industry and loving food and stuff. We talked about how we got into sports. We talked about the difference between Canadian football and American football. We got a cameo from his son Mason, who I just met online for the first time yesterday. So that'll be coming up in a second. And we just had a really good conversation. His power rankings, he ranked his top 5 bands of all time. Spoiler alert, number one is a Canadian band that probably most of you have never heard of. Anyway, stick with the program and check out the interview with Mike Grindberg. Like this video, share it around, comment in it, get that algorithm pumped, hit the notification bell so that when I drop an episode, you can get notified. A lot of really good guests coming up. I should have part 2 with Billy Wayne Davis coming up in a couple weeks. I've got some really good people in the fantasy community, all thanks to the Scott Fishbowl 13, which Mike and I got into a little bit. Behind me is my Jalen Mills jersey that I won in a random drawing with the Fantasy Cares 25 Days of Christmas drawing. It was a great charity event by Fantasy Cares. Everybody that donated a certain amount of money got their name put into a draw every day. They drew for a different autographed jersey. And then there were peripheral giveaways of Funko Pops and other jerseys, golden tickets for the SFB 14. It was a really great, fun time getting into that YouTube video every day. And I just want to shout out, I got my Green Goblin jersey in the mail. And I want to shout out Fantasy Cares. Russ, Bob, Scott Fish, everybody involved. It's such a great organization. Go to Twitter and find Fantasy Cares. Go to fantasycares.org. It's a really great organization. It brings the community together. That's one of the reasons I'm able to do all this stuff, is because since entering the Fishbowl, my content creator life has just expanded and expanded and expanded, and I've met a lot of really good people. Mike and I get into that too. So I got to get this video edited real quick. Stick around. I got to record another one in a second with a really, really great guest. So look for the next episode. It'll be with Steven Sickles from Razzball, which is another great site. Shout out. I was into Razzball a long time ago. And with that, producer, hit the intro, and let's get into this fantasy burn with Mike Grindberg. Peace. So, Mason, it's good to meet you. Show me your jerseys again.
Patrick Mahomes.
Patty M.
My Diggs.
Old school, nice.
And then my Lamb.
CD Lamb. All right, and what's the advice you're looking for?
Which one I should wear on when I go back to school this week?
It depends. Do you want to get beat up?
No.
No. Okay. So wear the CD Lamb jersey.
Yes.
That's the one you wanted. I have a jersey too. Check this out.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, nice. The one you got for Fantasy Cares, eh?
Yeah. So it's an autographed Jalen Mills.
Oh, nice.
Green Goblin from the Philadelphia Eagles.
And it's signed.
At least it's not the Raiders.
Well, no,
I'm a big time Chiefs fan, and
I know.
I kind of I'm not very fond of the Raiders.
I understand that. You feel the same about the Raiders that I feel about the Chiefs.
Yeah,
So we're good.
yeah,
Sweet.
yeah.
What?
I'm gonna get going. Thanks for having me on the show.
Good to meet you, Mace.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
What's up, buddy? How's it
that
going,
was dope.
everyone?
Mike
Cool.
Grindberg, Mike Lindberg, aka Mike Grindberg, my partner in crime, my buddy, DynastyProsFootball.com weekend warm up co-host and player profiler news desk co-contributor, the guy that handles the AFC West teams that I don't, and vice versa. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling great. I'm
Nice.
excited to be on the burn again because I had a burn to get back on it. So here we are.
Oh, the puns are starting already. All right. What are you drinking? I got La Croix, as you pronounce it in Canada. Apricot.
Okay.
Apricot. What are you drinking?
I am drinking a raspberry bubbly, if you will.
Buble.
Yeah,
Nice.
a bubbly. You know, in the America, down south where you live, they have these with caffeine in them.
I
Like
know.
I was like, holy crap, man, that's
I,
incredible.
I drink them on occasion. All right.
Yeah,
Let me get your banner up here where people can find you. Mike Lindberg, as I like to say, Mike Grindberg, because he's constantly grinding, at FF Canuck 99 on Twitter. You can find his writing on dynastyprosfootball.com and look for AFC West and other varied news on playerprofiler.com. So if you go to Player Profiler and you go to a player profile, and there's a little news and media link. If you click on that, there are news blurbs, and Mike is one of the fellow contributors to that with me. So that's where he can find all that stuff. So, Mike, let's get into this. Where are you from?
I'm from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, up in
Home
the
of the
Great White.
Jets.
Yeah, Winnipeg Jets, Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Um, yeah, that's where I'm from. It's awesome.
Current landing spot of Cal legend Kenny Lawler, wide receiver.
You bet. It is currently -1 degree Fahrenheit here, so pretty
Whoa,
mild for a winter day here up in Manitoba. It's been a pretty mild winter so far, so we're pretty happy with that outcome right now.
that's like 62 degrees colder than it is in my house right now.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah.
I went for a walk. It was a little bit brisker than it was yesterday, but still wasn't too bad.
I haven't turned on the heater since Sunday.
Lucky, lucky, lucky,
Maintain,
lucky.
maintain a nice 60 degrees in the house. It's pretty
Yeah.
nice. So tell me a little bit about like your education, like where you came from growing up, because you're a cook right now, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry, I'm sorry. You are a culinary instructor.
correct. Yeah, so I, just like every kid here, we went to school, high school. I got a job actually in a kitchen when I was 14, and a kitchen I considered a kitchen because I had a lot of valuable experience working at Burger King for 2 years there. So from 14 to 16, I started my career in kitchens, and then from 16, I started working in a company that was like a more of a corporate restaurant, kind of like your chain restaurant type scenario. It's premium casual cuisine, and I started working my way up there. And I knew I wanted to be a chef growing up, so like it kind of just was like a natural transition. I kept working for that company for about 14 years. I moved my way up from, line cook to line supervisor to sous chef to head chef, and then at the end of it there I was running 3 restaurants at once for them, for that restaurant group. So it was all at once. It was more like a multi-unit chef, so it was more managing human resources, staff. It was less cooking than anything. I was just managing a business at that stage of my career. And then I was working some crazy hours. I moved to a very secluded area in northern Alberta where life was a little bit different. So there's just a lot of challenges up there. And I decided to move back home to Manitoba with my wife. And when we were pregnant with my son, Mason, and that was about 10 years ago. And I got into retirement homes. So I was running, all the retirement homes in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, which is two provinces, which was, over, I think, 40 establishments at once. So quite the umbrella at the time. And then I was like, hey, I need to have something a lot more conducive. So I went back to school and got my teaching degree alongside my Red Seal. So I was able to, Red Seal is like the certification here for the cook designation or to become a certified chef. So I had that, and then I went back to get my teaching degree. And at the time, I was working at a high school as like a temporary teacher because didn't have my teaching degree finished. So I was still teaching the class I was doing, but I'm teaching a culinary arts course in kind of the heart of the inner city in Winnipeg, which is one of the most poverty-stricken areas in all of Canada and probably all of North America, to be honest. Just where it is and the needs of where it is. So we run a level 1 accredited program where the students getting out of our program have a level 1 accreditation. We teach them everything, man. Like, we do stocks from scratch. We make pasta from scratch and serve it to the cafeteria. So this isn't like your institutionary home economics class. This is a full-on, full service cafeteria that does like pretty intense stuff. So I run an adult program, and there's a high school program as well in the school.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, as you were talking, it dawned on me. It's funny how everybody that I have on, I have like little life parallels to. So I had Tuma on. He works in life insurance. I used to sell life insurance. I had Bo on. Bo is a chef hobbyist like I am. Has dabbled in, food work. Has his own seasoning company, which is and hot sauce, which is something that I've thought of before. I also started my first, well, besides newspaper delivery, um, where I got to see the first headlines at 4 in the morning of Gretzky being traded to the LA Kings. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
my first like job was in a restaurant, at a Chinese food restaurant in town at 14 years old. So all of the content creators that I talk to, Peter Howard is, he's a history professor. I love history. I'm an enthusiast. I have all these little parallels with everybody that I talk to, and the one common denominator is that we are all in the fantasy space because you find sports fans and people who have a creative or they have an intent to like distribute content, and we come from all walks of life and we all share a love of sports. So how did you get into sports? I know that you play hardball,
Yep.
you write fantasy football content,
Mm-hmm.
your kid plays hockey, you love hockey. I mean, you're Canadian,
Mm-hmm.
you're legally obligated.
Yep.
What was the genesis of like your sports fandom? How did you get into it?
Well, I mean, if you notice at the end of my Twitter name there, or my X name, I have 99, and I'm not sure if you recognize that number
Mario
from,
Lemieux.
yeah, Mario Lemieux upside down, exactly. The other great Canadian. But yeah, like Wayne Gretzky was always somebody that grew up, even in Winnipeg, where we were like Smythe Division rivals. So this team that played the Jets every single year, like Winnipeg had some dominant teams back then, and the only reason why we weren't great was because Gretzky was always beating us in 7 games. So it was hockey. I grew up, listening, watching, playing hockey. It was just something that was culture here, and we also have a very big and you know people people don't know the CFL, but it is an amazing league, and there's a reason why it's got such huge history. It's been around forever. Over 100 years. It's the people, it's the game. It's a unique game. It's very different from the NFL. Wouldn't say very different, but it's quite a bit different. The field is a lot different. Um, so we have a team here called the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and I've been a fan for them as well. So that's kind of where my passion is. And I loved baseball growing up, and I was playing minor league baseball right around the time where Joe Carter hit that home run for the Blue Jays. I think it was 91 or 92, the World Series. And that's kind of where baseball was like became big here for us because we don't get summer. You know, we're snow like 6 months out of the year. So to be able
Yeah.
to have baseball and be competitive at it, uh, it just wasn't common growing up. And then when you see the stuff like that, where you know it can happen here in Canada. And Toronto is making a huge push this year too to get a good team out on the field. And that's where my love for baseball came. And I played minor league baseball for a number of years, and then now I'm playing beer league baseball, which isn't super competitive, but it keeps me going, and it's a lot of fun, and it keeps the competitive edge out there, right? So
Yeah, I played competitive hardball for a long time, and when I played in Anchorage, I played in Anchorage for a couple years, and our games would start in May, and there was still snow in the outfield, and it was it May here, it's already in the 90 degrees. May in Anchorage, we're playing games at dead of the afternoon at, and it's 40 degrees or lower
yeah,
sometimes. One season I pulled a hamstring, and it was like a grade one hamstring pull that was completely purple and black on the back of my leg for the entire season. And all I did was slide a neoprene sleeve on it and play out the rest of the year because it wasn't going to heal, not with no heat or anything.
yeah,
And then I had a teammate that played in the he was drafted in the Rockies organization, uh, pitcher, through mid 90s. I competed against him and played with him. He actually there was a Canadian professional league for a little while, and he was one of the charter members of that. Went up there and played. And there is a nice tradition of expansion baseball in Canada. Don't forget the 1994 Montreal Expos,
hmm
who were one of the best teams ever assembled, and Toronto winning World Series and things like that. I'm a fan of both the Expos and the Blue Jays, and you guys got my captain Brandon Belt, and he will always be in my heart. So yeah, I Canadian baseball is still pretty cool. It was sad to see the uh, the Expos leave, but
yeah.
what are you
And
gonna do?
it was sad to see them not win a World Series. Or that year there, they went on strike there and cut that season short. They were dominant that year, and it was just un, unforeseen circumstances that cut that short for them. But it would have been awesome for
And
Montreal.
and you brought up Joe Carter. What about Gary Carter and Al Oliver
Mm-hmm.
and Rusty Staub? And like there's a little bit more to Canadian baseball than just starting with the Blue Jays World Series.
Yep.
Uh, Rance Mullenix and God, who are some of the Blue Jays? George Bell and there Dave Steeb. There were
Kelly
there were a bunch.
Gruber.
Kelly Gruber, that's another big one. Dane Org.
Yeah. Dane Org. Yeah, then they started bringing in the heavy hitter like Jimmy Key and all the pitchers there that got him. David Cohn and Pat Henkin, I think, was there too during that time. And uh geez, there was some good
David
ones.
Wells.
Yeah, David Wells, like just the man, just it was just an assembly of crazy talent.
David Wells is one of those guys like Pablo Sandoval, that golfer guy from Arkansas. God, I forget his name, but I hate golf. That you, as a large man, you look at and you're like, yeah, I can be an athlete. So you get into sports because you grow up loving hockey. Uh, Baseball sweeps the nation with the Blue Jays World Series. When did you start getting into analytics? When did you start? And I don't mean that in terms of like creating content. What I mean is everybody has to dip their toe into the idea that there is more to sports than what's on the back of a card or the stats that they show on the TV screen.
Yeah, you know what? I've been into sports analytics since I was like probably 5. We had like such a huge collection growing up, my dad and I. It was mostly hockey cards, but we still have a huge like database of some pretty premium hockey cards that are pretty valuable right now. And that's kind of where it started. Just learning stats. And as a 11-year old, I'd be going to school and I could tell you who was starting centerman for whatever team it was at the time. And it was just like things that kids my age weren't doing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And following just because of the passion that my dad got me into, and that was it. Kind of started with him, really. And then as I started playing fantasy football, I think my first fantasy football season was in 2007. Um, might have even been earlier than that, and I wasn't. I hadn't dabbled my toes too much into it yet. Like I think my first overall pick was Brandon Jacobs, and then just there wasn't much out there as far as content goes. I think our platform was uh geez, it's still out there. Real time fantasy sports.
Hmm.
It's still around with Jeff Poor and his stuff. And I when I started getting into that website, and I was just like, it just completely changed. Like I was seeing things, and I was trying to get ahead of the game, and I was deemed as like a shady owner because I would figure out a loophole in the system, and I would and then they started making rules because of the stuff I was doing, because I would figure out things like, oh, I could pick up a guy on waivers, and then he'd be so I just start picking up guys knowing that this guy is missing a quarterback, and then I would start, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
just so that guy couldn't start a quarterback. So then they would develop rules based off of the stuff that I was figuring out. So then I was like, maybe I am pretty good at this. And then, I started winning championships and figuring that end out. And next thing you know, like I just started listening to a lot of podcasts when they started coming out about 4 years ago. And that's when I really started to like, hey, I would start writing down like the starts and sits before the podcast would come out, and I would see how I would do compared to these analysts. And I was like, well, why can't I do this? Right?
Right.
Like there's nothing different than, these guys get it wrong just as much as I do, and I get it right just as much as they do. I put the time in. Why can't I do this? And it just started evolving. And, you know, back in May, I just decided to just plunge in and say, hey, what's the worst that could happen? You know, I
Yeah.
suck at it, and it's over. But then opportunities happening just like yourself, and things just kept snowballing into more things and opportunity. And the community is awesome. They're embracing everyone that, I've been in contact with. Has been nothing but a support system, and it's a really cool place to be in. I love it.
Yeah. And one of the things that I enjoy in my dealings with you is that we're in very similar places, and we had a very similar beginning. We're both writing for the same two websites. We both enjoy, providing content with each other. And we both started right around the beginning of the summer. It was when I got my Scott Fishbowl invite, and I just happened to have some time come to me where I had some free time. And one of the things that got me so charged about being in the fishbowl was the community network that it creates. And the biggest thing that I've found over the last 6, 8 months is exactly that. All of the connections that I make, from the people that I was at the live draft with to the people that I talked to online and all that stuff, it has created such a great space for me to, kind of weave in and interact with. And, brought me like friendships, like legitimate friendships. And we're both going places, and we're going places together, and it's like it totally charges me up. I love
Yeah.
it. So one thing that I wanted to touch on that you brought up: if you play fantasy football and you've never gone in with an empty roster spot and picked up 4 or 5 guys on waivers only to drop all of them to prevent any league mates from picking them up before the games lock, before rosters lock, before the games, you're not trying hard enough. Don't make a rule against that. That's just called strategy. If it's in the rules, you're fine.
Hmm.
If they have to make it a rule, they're the problem. All right. Uh, so that's a little bit how you got into like the analytics side of it. What were the steps that you took to start getting it? Well, let me go back a little bit. You brought up Canadian football, and there are some differences for anybody who's not familiar with Canadian football. The end zones are what, 10 yards, 15 yards deep, 20 yards deep.
20.
20 yards, 20-yard end zones instead of 10 like in American football. The field is 110 yards, if I'm not mistaken. The
Correct.
goalposts are at the front of the end zone, just like they used to be in the NFL or in American football before they were moved back. Um, so it is a different game, and I would imagine that the ability to watch and stay informed, not that I know, but or that maybe you would, but the ability to watch and stay informed with the NFL is a little bit different in Canada than it is here. So, what was your entrance into the NFL, into the American game?
Well, I mean, we that's a great question because where I live about a 7 hour drive from Minneapolis, and it's straight south. So it's one of the big places that we go to as a trip growing up. Like it's a road trip. You know, it's inexpensive for us to drive rather than flying. Like we never grew up with a lot of money, so you know, Minneapolis, that's a huge trip for us. You know,
That's
it's
about
close.
the same distance from where I am to LA.
Yeah. So like we could go to, you know, west or east and, you know, get to like Calgary and stuff like that in 12 hours, but we could get to the United States, which is a whole other country, and then, you know, that's where I kind of started you know, following the Vikings a bit growing up. You know, my uncle was a Vikings fan and it was close to home. And then it wasn't until later on where I become a Chiefs fan, realizing that, you know, the you know, Arrowhead is only 6 hours past that. So, you know, I'm not that far from a lot of NFL, you know, hubs. You know, Green Bay is not too far. It's like, I think it's a 12-hour drive. So that's kind of where the NFL started, is like those trips down south. And, you know, we started getting a whole lot more exposure as well to it. You know, we get all the channels now, we get all that stuff. So it's becoming pretty mainstream. Obviously, you know, 15 years ago it was a little bit harder to get every single game, you
Right.
know, when red zone wasn't around, or Sunday ticket. But in the last 10 years, like, it's been great. And you know what really got me is that a lot of the pubs around here would have like wing nights on Monday night, and then we'd go for, you know, cheap wings and beer. And that's kind of like, you start, you know, betting on the games and stuff like that with some buddies, and next thing you know, you're, you know, you're well into it. And that's kind of where it started.
Nice. And I like the perspective of, so my growing up in the Bay Area basically, and having the options of the Oakland Raiders and the San Francisco 49ers. Within a 6 hour drive, we had the Rams. Eventually the Raiders moved there. Seattle is a bit further, so this, but still within the range of you and the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
Phoenix, which eventually got the Cardinals, that's about a 9 hour drive from here. So, so it's funny to me that all of these places that I look at, and I'm like, they're too far away for my fandom
Mm-hmm.
because of proximity. To you, you're like, oh, that's close.
Yeah,
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 I
yeah, yeah,
could
yeah,
totally be
exactly.
a Chiefs fan.
Yeah,
It's only a 13-hour drive from here.
exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
I love that. That's cool. So now you're into football. You've got a sports fan base. You start to play a little bit of fantasy. You have an online presence with Twitter. What are some of the things you did? Scott Bowl invitation was probably big.
Mhm.
Tell me about how that came to you, um, and then basically like how you started reaching out to people to like start creating content, not just for yourself but for other people.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Fish Bowl was a huge invite for me. I got it. I won it through a contest through Fantasy Life. So, um, you know, I followed the guys there, Harditz and Dwayne McFarland, for a number of years and stuff like that. Followed their work, and you know, you just on Twitter, you know, just you see things pop up, you put your name in, and next thing you know, I got lucky, I got the invite, and then, you know, that kind of just got the fire burning. Like, okay, this is something I really want now, because when you know that you're playing in, you know, a tournament with some of the best in the world, you're pumped up about it. You want to see how
Yeah,
you do, right? You know, and how you can measure up, and it's a great way because there's no previous data, nothing like that, you know, that you can go off of. Everybody starts at the clean slate. So, you know, the savvy owners really need to do their homework if they want to do well in it. And that's what I did. And the next thing you know was like, I follow a lot of the football guys' work. I just did for years. They were the kind of my go-to place for content creating, just for reading and consuming. I just like their podcasts. I like the people that were writing. They're more, you know, less commercialized than some of the other platforms. But they're still one of the, the they're commercialized, but they're not like, sellouts, I find. So
There's a fine line there.
yes. Um, So I follow their stuff. I follow all their creators on Twitter, and then I saw that Kevin Coleman posted something in the summer about like, oh, if you want to get into content creating, this is a great company. So then I just DM'd, the guys at Dynasty Pros, and they're like, well, send me some of your work. And I was like, well, I don't have any work. I didn't have anything yet. I didn't try anything. And then I was like, can you give me a week to put something together? And they're like, absolutely. So I took a week and I wrote I was off that summer. I thought I did a good job putting this article together. I'm still, the take that I had on that person is still yet to be seen. There's still some mixed thoughts on this player, but it ended up working out really good because, they liked the article. And then next thing you know, I was on staff at Dynasty Pros writing articles for them. And I took it very seriously. I was right on, every week I was giving them my one article. And then you reached out online one day and was like, hey, anybody want to meet up and do a show with me? So I was like, okay. I felt like that was 5 years ago now. Like, honestly, the,
It was like
the,
August.
yeah, like I felt like I was using like a startup modem, like dial up, and like that's just how primitive things were back then for us. Like we just didn't, it wasn't crisp at all. I
Right.
would talk for 15 minutes straight, and then you would talk for 15 minutes straight, and then we started, getting a groove. And next thing you know, Dynasty Pro said, hey, you guys want to do this? Or we kind of, I don't know how that worked out. We just kind of forced our way in there somehow. Like we just started doing it and no one said boo to us. And then next thing you know, we have a weekly show, and
Right.
then we just took the bull by the horns and kept rolling with it. And
Yeah, I think what happened was like I took it upon myself to start doing like dynasty debating, and because what we've been writing is like, well, the Debbie debate and the Dynasty Dilemma article, which was a template that Dynasty Pros had for us to kind of hop into, was basically like, here's a player, here's the pros of him, or here are his pros and cons on the field. Now come to a determination what to do with him if you're a dynasty owner. And I thought that's a perfect idea for a podcast. Get two guys on to like talk about a couple people, and so I started doing that for me, and then he picked it up for us to do, and that is what turned into the weekend warm up, which is now the premier weekly start sit show for in the industry. I like to say, um, with more stuff coming. So if you watch this podcast, we're recording our next episode tomorrow night, and it's basically going to be a recap of the 2023 season. So go to Dynasty Pros on YouTube and try and find that. You can hear the end of the year banter, who we have as MVPs and stuff like that. But then we're also going to expand the show beyond the in season lineup stuff into rankings of campus to Canton players, our rookie drafts, and doing mocks and things like that. So find us over on Dynasty Pros on YouTube and follow that. More stuff coming with Player Profiler. We're both doing TikToks and YouTube shorts and stuff like that. So look for all those things too. So, okay, now we are right. We just finished the end of the 2023 fantasy season. Yesterday, or last night, right around midnight my time Pacific, Sleeper finally decided to certify the victories, if you will, and throw those trophies out there. So first, the most important thing was you and I getting into the fishbowl, which prompted all of this. with the goal of making the playoffs, because it's a 3,300 player tournament and not everybody makes the playoffs. So, like you said, to separate yourself from the people that you see, like creating content and being professionals and getting paid, you want to see how you stack up against them. So when I got my invite, the first thing that I did when I got to pick a league, because I wasn't in the live draft yet, I went through and I found guys like Tristan Cockcroft and Matthew Berry to find, like, I directed my search for what league I wanted to be in based on who else was going to be in the league, because I wanted to get in that league and beat them. And so that was a motivational factor for me. And then my ultimate goal was to make the playoffs. I knew I wasn't going to win the whole thing. There's just one person out of 3,300 that's going to do that. So odds are against me. And one of the mottos I saw was, "You're not going to win, so just have fun." So I made the most of it. Went to the draft, had a blast, had fun connecting with people online and stuff like that. But you and I both made the playoffs. You went a round further than me. I had one week where everybody decided to shit the bed and Trey McBride was on bye. And then you advanced to the next week. So talk a little bit about your Scott Fishbowl success, how far you went, and all that stuff. And then give me two other leagues that you're super proud of being good in.
All right, man. Well, I thought I did pretty good in the Scott Fishbowl. I was throughout the whole process, I was really dialed in. I felt like even in my draft, I was just thought I had a really good system. I had some good tools I was using. I found some good stuff online, which really gave me an edge. I felt, and I let you know about them last time we talked, and I'll let you know about them when next year if we both get in. But yeah, like I ended up having the same buy, Trey McBride, but I squeaked in through the next round, and then I can barely missed it. I finished 268 out of 3,300 people, so 268.
250 moved on, and you were
Yeah,
18 away.
yeah, I was 2 points out, and then the next week I would have been in the top 10 because
Oh, damn.
my team went completely berserk. I had Zay Flowers had a monster week. It was one like James Conner. Like it would have been a beautiful sight because I probably would have been in the finals. But you know what, you can't. It's the same deal with you. What I coulda shoulda. My guy,
Right.
I was 2 points away, but anybody could have said that. So as far as the way it went, I feel like I battled some injuries in that competition too, and I was still managed to 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 stink out and 286 out of 3,300. No, 268. Sorry, out of 3,300. Man, awesome. Super
That's
proud of that.
badass. Yeah, I one of the funny things was there was an engine, a model that took your draft and then proposed where you were going to finish.
Yeah,
And my it was proposed that I was going to be in the bottom third, like in like after the top 2,100 or something like that. And I wound up finishing much better than that. So
yeah, of course.
that was a nice victory. And now the Scott Fish Bowl scoring changes every year. This year it was no negative points for like interceptions and fumbles and stuff like that. There was a supercharged tight end premium. There were first downs for points for wide receivers, running backs, and tight ends and quarterbacks. And through analyzing all of the scoring, looking back on where players were with their 2022 performance, if those Scott Fishbowl scoring metrics were applied, through all of my analysis, I figured out the best thing to do would be to fade wide receivers, because I was going to get better value from running backs and tight ends late, and maybe waiting on the third quarterback kind of thing, and not hitting wide receivers until like the 10th, 11th round, which scared the hell out of me and stuck me with a top three wide receiver core of like Nico Collins, Mike Evans, and Treylon Burks. Those were my three, the first three that I
Yeah,
drafted. But two of them completely showed out, which tells you the absolute luck involved in, because Nico Collins had he had a 43% uh, catchable target rate in 2022 and a 75% catchable target rate in 2023 based on the quarterback change that nobody could see coming. Those kinds of things. That wasn't my analysis. That was just dumb ass luck. And
Yeah.
and and I saw people. There was somebody who was in my division who is an actual bona fide fantasy expert with an XM radio show and blah blah blah. And he didn't make the playoffs. It's not that he is not as smart as me or as good as whatever. It's just that's the way that the season played out, and that's something that a lot of people forget when you're talking about fantasy football and analysis, is that you can account for a lot of things. You can't account for dumb luck. Same with poker. So
For
okay,
sure.
so you did super good in the Scott Fish Bowl, and hopefully our performance this year, plus our presence in the space, and Scott
Hmm.
Fish seeing the things that we've done, will prompt like a non-winnable invite next year. But what are two of the other leagues that you did well in? You didn't have to win them,
Yep.
but if it's two championships, then what are the two leagues you're proudest of?
Well, I got into a Dynasty league with some of my colleagues at the Dynasty Pros level. So that was kind of like my first one with all guys that are content creators, and we did, yeah, and you're involved with this too. We did like a C2C, so campus to Canton. So we did a college side and an NFL side, and my college side started off blazing. I think I was 4-0, and then I couldn't figure out the tight end position for the hell of me, and then waiver wire ads I just couldn't figure out in that. So my team ended up being in the bottom half. But on the other side of it, I was barely my team started off really bad, and I made a couple trades not realizing that it was a 6 team playoff bracket. So I was like, oh my god, I might have done this. I might have sold some pieces before even making it into the playoffs. But I ended up squeaking in the last week. I was the 7th seed headed into week 14, and I snuck in as the 5th seed. Made a couple monster trades that ended up working out good, and ended up taking that league home. So that was the Dynasty Pros Dynasty League. So I was really proud of that one.
Now, if I remember correctly, somebody had Amari Cooper. Whatever happened with him?
He got injured, and this I made a trade for Amari Cooper and Raheem Mostert in the same deal, and I got rid of Tajay Spears and Jaden Reed, which might burn me in the long run because neither of those players ended up playing for me in the championship game anyhow. But it ended up working out all right. They helped surge my team into the playoffs, and it was a strong enough core that I didn't need them in the championship.
Now I'm going to show something on the screen, and this I thought was pretty cool. So this is in regards to the Dynasty Pros Campus to Canton League, and you and I, make a good pair. Check this
We
out.
do, we do. Oh, what does that mean?
Hang on. There we go.
You're the goat. I'm the goat, and you're the toilet bowl. That's awesome.
I saw that this morning and I thought, yeah, I'm definitely going to share that. All right, so Campus to Canton from Dynasty Pros. That was our Riders League, which was won by Andy, the Process, who beat me in our other NCAA side. Um, Second league that you're proud of.
I got invited to a league from the football guys. It was the football guys fantasy football show, the listener league. I was a listener for a long time with them for various shows, and they started the fantasy football show this summer. Um, and I ended up getting in, and there was 10 other listeners, and we competed with Alfredo Brown and Dave Kluge, and I ended up taking that one down as the champion, and with that, I won a spot on their show today. So I did a 23-minute segment on the fantasy football guys football show. So that was a pretty cool experience this morning, and a really awesome experience beating two pros in their own league. So two championships, a Scott Fish Bowl, and most importantly, the friendship that I got with you, I got out of this whole year. So that was the most important thing for me. It was
Don't
that.
make
So
me cry, Mike. You're gonna make me cry, Mike. I was kind of assessing where I was at, and I won a couple of championships, one dynasty win. I had another that was like kind of, it was a best ball weird thing that I felt very proud of. Even though, again, dumb luck, the guy that I wanted to take got snatched, and I had to settle for Puka Nakua. Um, but I was proud of that one because I scored more points than the next person, to the point where the difference between our scores was bigger than his total point score. So, like, way more than doubled up. And then the other one was I took over an orphan in a keeper league, and I went from being the team I took over was the third lowest scoring team last year, and I got knocked out of the playoffs in week 16. Basically, if Sam Howell and Trevor Lawrence don't shit the bed that week, I win.
yeah, yeah.
But I took that team from third lowest in scoring to highest scoring team, and that was like a complete rebuild. So that felt super good. So okay, I think we are close to the end. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna do our power rankings, and most of the time, if I'm corresponding with somebody, I'll like tell them, "Hey, I do this power ranking segment. We go number 5 to number 1. Um, we can do a variety of different topics or whatever, or you can pick one." So some people have picked them on the fly. Some people have picked them beforehand, but I'm not going to let you do that. We're going to do the randomizer wheel.
Okay.
So let's see what topic you are going to rank from 5 to 1. Let's go.
Oh my God.
Where did it go? Oh, there we go. All right, so we got bands, pizza toppings, middle names, video game franchises, movies, other stuff, and we're gonna land on
Oh
bands.
God.
Your top
Okay.
5 musical artists from 5 to 1.
Oh my goodness.
So this is what I'm gonna want from you, Mike.
Okay.
I want you to list them from 5 to 1. You go on the fly, and tell me a little bit about them. Have you been able to see them live? Do you Are they the band that you own the most records of? When did you fall in love with them? That kind of thing. So 5 to 1. Let's do this.
Oh my goodness. Jeez Louise. Okay, so these are tough for me because I love all sorts of music, and I don't know, they could probably, depending on what time of year it is and where I'm at, summertime I like certain types of jams and stuff like that. So um I can't really put them in top to 5 as far as ranking goes, but I'll try my best. Okay, so we'll
Yeah, and,
go.
and you can
Yeah,
think about it this way.
yeah,
We'll do a desert island thing. So you're stranded on a desert island.
yeah.
You have let's go all the way back. You have 5 cassette tapes.
Mm-hmm.
And on those cassette tapes, you have the collected works of
Of
each of the
okay,
bands,
okay,
and it's the 5 bands that you couldn't live on a deserted island without.
okay. I'm gonna go with the Beatles being one of them. Very influential throughout my childhood, and throughout my adolescent years too. They were foundation of a lot of music, so they're definitely in my top 5.
Definitely
Um,
a popular answer.
yeah, I'm gonna go with Led Zeppelin as one as well. That I listen to a lot, and just they've got such a large collection too that if I'm on a desert island, I'm wanting something that's going to give me a lot of variety, and their work book is quite extensive. So I love Led Zeppelin. So these are English bands, obviously. I'm gonna go with Sublime as one of them as well. Just something that I've always grew up listening to. Just I love the music. I'm going to go with Bob Marley and the Wailers. It's another, band or artist that I just love. And then I'm gonna go. I'm gonna throw. There's so many more. I'm gonna throw a Canadian band in here, and that's the Tragically Hip,
Oh,
as
nice.
well. So they are something that I just listen to all the time, and has been a big part of Canadian culture growing up, and they've got some really awesome songs. So I'm gonna go with the
I
Hip.
was waiting on something like Alanis Morissette or Brian Adams or DOA even.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, it's the Beatles are a very popular answer. So we're I'm much older than you, but we're essentially Generation X. We're essentially the same generation. And when I was growing up, my parents, former hippies, had a big LP collection. And when I was 6 7 years old, like getting into it, just digging through their stacks, the one band that they had the most records of was the Beatles, and so obviously that's where I gravitated, and so that my foundation of love for music starts with the Beatles, and that because that's what I was listening to. And one of the things I love about them is the progression of the band from the early stuff that they were doing that's like pretty simple stuff to some of the more complex melodies and arrangements that they were using at the end with Abbey Road and Let It Be. Not necessarily in that order. And I feel like, and I've gotten into this argument with a lot of people, that I think Let It Be is the culmination of their musical abilities. I think it's the best album that they ever did. A
Hmm.
lot of people disagree with me, but I think that like listening to the whole like evolution of the Beatles, that one for me is the one that like just sticks with me. Zeppelin is another one. My dad and I still have his original copy of the Led Zeppelin one, which I think is their best record. How Many More Times is one of my favorite songs of all time. Everything that they did is great. My girlfriend got a quilt that her mother made for her for Christmas, and it's a whole lot of denim. It's a whole bunch of
Nice.
like thrifted jeans and stuff that's all stitched together and then quilted. And when I saw like the fadey light denim color, my immediate thought was that's Robert Plant with his shirt open and the little denim vest on and his like same color bell bottoms, just like belting it out with his flowing golden curly locks in the wind. And Sublime, I actually they totally like came out of nowhere. When I lived in Seattle, I discovered this music festival that happens every year in Seattle Labor Day weekend. It goes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and it's at the Seattle Center, and it's just 4 days of just bands and national touring bands. It's not like just a local thing. So the first year of the Warp Tour, I want to say it was 1996. One of the days was designated for the Warp Tour. So in the place where they have the Washington State High School football championship games played, it's like a little football field stadium. They had the whole Warp Tour set up. So the big half pipe was there and all of the stuff. And they had the bands from that first Warp Tour, and Sublime was one of them. And I had never heard of them before. Maybe it was 95. Maybe it was 95. Of all the bands that I saw on that Warp Tour bill, Sublime was the one that I walked away from going, holy shit, that blew my mind, and I want more. And shortly thereafter, Bradley took his own life,
Hmm.
and it was tragic, not tragically hip.
No, it wasn't.
I guess I mean heroin overdose is tragically hip.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah.
So go ahead and familiarize our audience with the Tragically Hip because they have a couple singles that were pretty big in the United States that most people would know, but not necessarily know that it was the Tragically Hip that did it.
Okay, well, you know what? I don't even know what songs were big for in the Americas. Let me see here. Blowin' High Dough, maybe you might have been. Poets is a good one. There's a ton. I mean, I love the melodies in a lot of them. My favorite song from them is Wheat Kings, and it's a very chill. I mean, it's about kind of where I grew up in the prairies here, so it kind of hits home.
Bird of Beef.
Yeah, exactly.
We Kings is one of their more popular songs. They were such a good band, such a good
Yeah,
band.
that's awesome. I love that you know them.
Of course, I love music as much as I love football, and as much as I love baseball, and as much as I love cooking, and all of the things. I just love the things, Mike. I love
Yeah.
all of the things. If there's a thing, I love it.
Awesome. Cool, man.
All right. So I know you have shit to get to today. One more time, tell everybody where they can find you, and then I will see you tomorrow night when we record the last episode for 2023 of the Weekend Burn in 2024. Where can
All
people
right.
find you?
You can find me on X or Twitter, if you will, at FFCanuck99, and then my written content at dynastyprosfootball.com. You can find us on the weekend warm up and soon to be a Thursday night special show. We'll figure out what that's going to be in the next couple days here. And then also Player Profiler on the news desk. You can find my stuff there as well.
I love the parallel of you saying those things as they scrolled across the screen, as if some people can't read, they just need to hear it. And
Exactly.
from the Fantasy Burn Studios in Northern California, I want to thank my guest, Mike Greinberg. I will see you tomorrow, buddy. And the rest of you guys, keep subscribing, clicking the bell, sharing, commenting. Follow me on Twitter at BigBonedFFB. Find me at dynastyprosfootball.com. Read Player Profiler. Go get yourself a subscription. And I hope you win.
Peace.